the feedback isn't part of you, right? Maybe it was your performance, maybe it was the way that you delivered something.
If certainty is not met and your certainty is your first need, it's going to be very hard to think long-term and strategic.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level University Meetup Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Today, for week number 47, it is wild to me that we have done 47 of these. The most important things every emotionally driven person needs to learn. So, our primary demographic tends to be made up of people who are emotionally driven. And we have taken in a lot of information about, what emotionally driven people need, how they act, the way they think, and we feel like this would be a super valuable topic for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, we have the PMES system. So physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Those are what we believe to be the four facets of the human condition. We all have all four, but our listeners tend to have E first. They tend to be emotionally driven. Now, there's strengths and weaknesses to each code, and the goal here really is to figure out what are the strengths of an emotionally driven person, and then how do we mitigate some of the downside? Because basically any code has both, all of us are both a warning and an example, and Kevin and I have coached a lot of emotionally driven people, and we kind of understand at this point much more than we ever have what they need to learn to really get to the next level.
And as always, we're going to shoot to give you guys 10 pieces of value. That's always our goal, so that way when I say number one, you understand it's one of how many?
Absolutely. Also, feel free to ask us questions. There's 3 ways to ask questions. As you know, you can type in the chat publicly. You can type to Amy anonymously, and she'll answer or ask it for you. Or you can just unmute your mic and interrupt us. We highly encourage interrupting us. The first 40 minutes will be a keynote from Kevin and myself with Q&A along the way. And then the last part will be the meetup, and hopefully you guys can talk about what you learned with each other. So let's rock.
40 minutes, here we go. So number one, you only see things from your perspective. You can only see what you can see, and sometimes somebody else can highlight something for you. So recently, Alan and I were a guest on a podcast of a couple of the Next Level family members. They've been listening to us for a hot minute. They're amazing people. They've worked on Dave Meltzer's team. I think that's actually how they found us. But it was a really good interview. But at the beginning of the interview, Alan said, hey, how long do we have here? It says on the calendar that we're only scheduled for 20 minutes. And they said, well, we can actually go up to 40 minutes because we have the free Zoom. Okay? Now, in that moment, and Alan and I were both thinking the same thing, you guys are way too good to be bottlenecking yourself by not having a paid Zoom account for $14 a month. It's just you're jeffing yourself a little bit. Okay? The lesson I want you to take from this, feedback isn't personal. So after we left the studio that day, I sent them a video or an audio, one of the two. And I said, hey guys, amazing interview today, but I would be doing you a disservice and I wouldn't be a good mentor if I didn't tell you this. You guys need to buy Zoom. When you start having the Dave Meltzers, the Dean Graziosis, the Evan Carmichaels, the 40-minute thing, you would like if you shut your Zoom off in the middle and you lost all that value, you would be really mad at yourself, right? So if you want professional results, you have to start acting like professionals. And they messaged back saying, awesome, we really appreciate that. That's something we're planning on doing, right? So that might have changed the trajectory of their podcast because of that one little piece of feedback, but it depends on how they take that feedback. They took it in a really good way. They didn't take it personal, and they're going to use it to get better. So what would happen in your life if you started taking feedback in a positive way? Even better, what if you craved feedback and you knew getting feedback was going to help you get to the next level? Now, it's always important to make sure you're taking feedback from somebody who you trust, somebody who you can be vulnerable with, and particularly somebody who is doing what you're doing.
Right.
We've gotten a lot of feedback about podcasting from people who don't podcast, and sometimes that's dangerous. So tomorrow, I want you to text somebody close to you that knows you really well and ask them, say, from your perspective, what are my unique strengths and what are my unique weaknesses? Just like a job interview, right? Alan and I helped somebody on the team get another job. They reached out to us to do the questions, and that's the question they asked me. What is this person's unique strengths and their unique weaknesses? Imagine if that person asked the same thing and got that feedback.
There's a question.
Hammer the question.
Excellent.
Hammer it.
How do you work on taking feedback less personally?
Oh, yeah. I think you have to understand that the feedback isn't part of you. Right? Maybe it was your performance, maybe it was the way that you delivered something, but you don't have to take feedback into your identity as a human being. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're not talented. I think one, disassociate your value from the feedback. And I think the other one is just understand at the beginning it's going to be a little bit harder. Like, you probably are going to personalize it at the beginning, but as you do it more and more often, I think it's just a muscle that you have to build.
I would say that, so this is the analogy that I use, and you've heard me talk about this before. If you want, there's only one thing better than the truth, and that's the whole truth. And you cannot understand, this helped me, you cannot understand the whole truth from only one viewpoint. If you want to see, if you're going to go and appraise a house, you have to go in the basement, you have to go in the living room, you have to go in the bedrooms, you have to see it from the yard, you have to see the drone view. If you want to see the whole truth of the house, you got to check the roof for mold. And so what you need to realize is that getting proactive feedback from other people is going to help you see things about yourself that you actually couldn't see from within yourself. I think one of the reasons, to answer the question that Amy asked, or someone asked on Amy asked on their behalf, is that when we have imposter syndrome and we already don't feel good enough, and then we get criticized or constructive feedback, it's really hard because we already believe on some level that they might be right, and we're scared to admit that. And here's the real root of it. If you have a fixed mindset on any subconscious level, feedback becomes a painful thing with no benefit. Whereas if you believe deep, deep down that you can improve and want to improve and intend to improve, you actually end up seeking it, because then it becomes a good thing, even though it's painful in the moment.
Fire.
Thank you, brother.
Fire answer. Not as good as mine, but.
Number two. Okay, so if you are emotionally driven, and this is something that I've seen time and time again with my clients, you need a strategic thinker in your corner. So whenever I'm studying a business person or studying a business and trying to understand, there's 4 things I'm trying to understand every single time that I coach somebody. The first thing is, where have they been? The second is, where are they right now? The third is, where do they want to go? And then the fourth is, what needs to shift in their thinking or their behavior in order to get there. And so if you don't have a long-term strategic thinker in your corner and you're more focused on now, I mean, I could give you a million examples. You've got Steve Jobs and Wozniak. You've got Paul Allen and Bill Gates, and just understand that the best teams in the world have someone who's very focused on right now, aka the COO of any company is operations. Yes, someone focused on now. And then you've got a CEO who's more focused on the vision. I asked one of my main mentors, he is the CEO of several tech companies. He's on the board of advisors of a bunch of others. And I asked him one time, we were at dinner, and I said, what's the hardest part of being a CEO? And he said, by far, trying to balance long-term vision with short-term profitability. From that conversation on, I started talking to Kevin, and I said, Kev, I want you to focus on short-term profitability to make sure the ship doesn't sink, and I'll make sure that we're headed in the right direction to the island that no one else can see. And obviously, we both do both, but we really empowered each other with that. So if you're emotionally driven and you don't have someone who's naturally gifted at long-term foresight, you're not going to be able to look around the corner as far. These are the chess players of the world. So you have to work in your life, yes, but also on your life. And so what have you missed out on? Now, here's the one thing I want to make sure I get across. People like the mentor I mentioned come off as cold, and they come off as calculated, and they come off sometimes as unkind. And it turns emotionally driven people off a lot of the time. But what's really unfortunate for me, and what hurts my heart a little bit, is that this person I know wants to help others, but he turns them off without knowing he does. And then the people who need his thinking most are actually the least inclined to seek him out. In other words, people like me and him get along naturally because we're both long-term strategic thinkers. But I already have that in my repertoire, whereas there's a lot of people who desperately need it. And so that's one of the reasons why I want to connect, M's with E's and E's with M's, is because it's going to benefit them tremendously, and it's not necessarily something that would organically happen. So the action for you, I want you to send a text. Think to yourself, okay? And use your intuition. Who do I know who is the best long-term strategic thinker in my orbit, in my network. Send a text or a DM to that person and ask them if they'd be willing to help you. If you don't have a long-term strategic thinker in your corner, it is hurting you compared to the person who does.
There's a question.
Oh, Everett.
All right. We need M-driven people, but how do you attract an M-driven individual to help you when you tend to attract and connect with E-driven people?
Oh, interesting. That's a great question. I'll go from my perspective, and you can go from yours.
Please.
I don't think I attracted M's into my life. I think I decided to seek them out. So Alan and I had been talking about doing a podcast. So back in the day, Alan had a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, and him and I had talked about him interviewing me. And it kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back until one day I literally said, I don't remember what I said, like Thursday, noon at this location, I'm coming and we're going to do this. So I don't know that through the law of attraction you would attract somebody in. Now, I do believe Alan and I partnered up for, a cause and a purpose way greater than we realize because we are really good at meshing with one another. But I honestly think you have to seek them out and figure out how you can add value to them. I helped Alan with vulnerability. Alan helped me with success. So that's the answer I would give. For sure.
And think about that for a second, right? I didn't even know what vulnerability was in terms of the definition of the word before Kevin. And so, I honestly don't believe that I would have attracted the love of my life into my life had it not been for Kevin. And Kevin and Taryn were learning about vulnerability, The Power of Vulnerability by Brene Brown. Was that a book that you guys were reading?
No, that's her TED Talk.
Oh, okay. And that really helped me understand why there's that disconnect. And I couldn't agree more. You have to choose in advance to proactively seek someone who's going to make you uncomfortable. That mentor I mentioned, I promise you, if you're emotionally driven, will make you uncomfortable. There's no question. He makes me uncomfortable. But he would change your life. I know that for a fact. So you almost have to. There's a link that I'm going to have Amy put in the chat later. That, in all honesty, this link is a teaching that most E's wouldn't be normally attracted to. But I promise you, it will help you so much. And then just like Brené's talk, The Power of Vulnerability, that title doesn't naturally attract the mentor I was telling you guys about. So it's just kind of like you have to choose in advance that you want to strengthen your weaknesses. And you have to realize that there's no right or wrong. There's just righty and lefty. And hopefully that is helpful.
And find people who have your same core values and beliefs and behaviors. That's super important because an M who is humble and shows humility will mesh with an E a lot better. An M who hasn't worked on their arrogance, or maybe they're not arrogant, but maybe they have that level of self-confidence that seems very high, that might rub an E the wrong way. So I think it has to go back to that too.
Drive to five,
some would say.
So Kevin and I, and then we'll move to the next one here. Basically, in high school, he didn't like me, and it's understandable why. I was extremely goal-oriented, and I had very high confidence, and I probably came off as arrogant, and honestly was in many regards. I was young. And Kevin was very insecure deep down. And so insecure people tend not to mesh with people who are arrogant. It's like oil and water. Is that the term? Oil and water?
That's one of the terms.
Okay. And so what can happen is later in life, you tend to, the person on my end of Drive to 5 gets humbled by life. And then the person who, is more E tends to build confidence, and then you can kind of attract each other naturally. So I would say work on your weaknesses, and then you'll start to naturally attract it. But what's interesting is chicken or egg, because in order to get more confidence, you kind of have to get around confident people. So
this one's mine.
Yeah.
This one's mine. We almost had a fist fight. I didn't know that.
Way back?
Yeah, when we were playing football. I challenged Alan to a physical altercation.
Oh, yeah.
And Lord knows, I would have won. I would have won. All right, number 3. Doing hard things is not easy, and honestly, it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. So one of my clients, her and I were on the phone recently, and she is a podcast client. But with my podcast clients, a lot of times we go into business, we go into mindset, we go into limiting beliefs, we go into all that stuff. And her and I were talking about, she wants to stop her podcast. And I said, honestly, I don't think that's a great play. I think what you're experiencing is you're so mixed up in life. There's not a lot of consistency. There's not a lot of certainty. Things are kind of all over the place. She's very scattered. And I said, I don't think you want to stop your podcast. I think you're just very unhappy with everything that's going on. And I got her to break down to the point where she said, I haven't exercised in years, like literally years. I don't do the things that are hard. I only do what I want to do. And I said, okay, let me give you a little bit of feedback here, if you're willing to take it. That's going to jeff you long-term for sure. Like, imagine if we only did the things we wanted to do. Alan and I might not be here today doing this because maybe Alan's had a headache all day. Like, he might not have come, right? I might have slept in. I might have, there's so many things that we could do if we only did what we wanted. So you have to consistently push yourself to do the things that are best. The things that are easy are not going to be the things that are best, most likely. And that's like a hard realization. What would your life look like? Like, really imagine this. 10 years from now, if you only did what you wanted, if you only did what you felt like, what do you think your life would look like? Would you have the relationship you want? Would you have the job or career? Would you have the body? Would you have the confidence? Would you have the knowledge? You probably wouldn't, because a lot of that stuff kind of sucks, right? It's not easy. But the stuff that's difficult is usually worth it. And you can always check in right on the way to make sure it is worth it. Double down on the stuff that is making progress for you, but not easy. And this is another thing, and I don't think we have this in the rest of the presentation. Create and double down on your peak performance tracking, because it's going to tell you what to do every day, regardless of whether or not you want. I did not want to meditate today, guys. I did not want to. It's on my peak performance tracking. I want to get 100%. I don't want Amy to beat me again, so I did it. And here we are.
Appreciate the honesty on that.
I try.
Little friendly competition we got going on here. The only thing that I would add to this is again, most people who, what's the difference between a professional and an amateur? A professional does what is hard and necessary, regardless of external circumstance. And an amateur does what's fun and easy. Like, I had a horrible headache today. We still recorded 2 episodes. We still prepared for this. Like, I'm showing up no matter what, regardless of how many other people show up. And again, it's up to you whether or not you want to do what's fun and easy or what's hard and necessary. And obviously, sometimes I choose fun and easy, but it's a balance.
Love you too, Amy.
Is that what she said in the chat? Nice. I couldn't even see it.
see things.
All right. So, number 4. How are we doing on time here? Okay. Literally getting used to the 40-minute thing. Obligers are the best team players. This is so fire. So, Gretchen Rubin,
yes,
wrote a book called The 4 Tendencies. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest it. What she basically says is that 80% of the world's population are obligers. In other words, they are better at doing more for others than they are for themselves. And they're more likely to, when they're asked to do something by someone else, they tend to do it. I believe that obligers are the best team players. Emotionally driven people are the best team players because they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they'll do more for others because they're so heart-driven and so service-driven. But what if you got on a team where what was best for you is what was encouraged? What could your life be like? So I have a client who is going to be a coach, and I think she's going to be an unbelievably successful coach. And I basically told her, you'll do more to not let me down than you will for yourself. And she sent a letter to her first client, potential client, and I don't know if she's heard back or not yet, but I just remember getting off that call thinking to myself, like, I know she can be an incredible coach. I know she can change this person's life. But basically what I asked is, are you going to send this thing or not? And I know that she's more willing to do it to not let me down, but yet we'll let ourselves down all the time. We all have this tendencies, but emotionally driven people have this tendency big time.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this or listening to this, it's obvious that you want to get to the next level of your life. We can help you get there faster.
In 3 months from today, your life can look completely different. Here's how. Group coaching. Here's what you're going to get. So you're going to get bi-weekly calls with Kevin and myself. You're going to be on a team of 10 like-minded, growth-oriented individuals. You're also going to be in a WhatsApp chat with Kevin and I and the entire team, 24/7 access to chat. Also, you're going to get bi-weekly progress reports and peak performance tracking.
Guys, this is a great opportunity for those who can't afford one-on-one coaching with Alan and myself. We have helped dozens and dozens of people get to the next level at this point. Go to nextleveluniverse.com, click group coaching, or find the link in the show notes.
Talk to you soon. And so you got to make sure you're on a team who wants your best interest at heart, not just them. And I will tell you that in the business world, I know a lot of very successful business people, and they are not always out for your best interest. A lot of times they have to put their best interest at first. And that's because their business will not succeed without that. But what Kevin and I are always trying to do on the NLU team is combine someone else's goals and dreams with what is best for us. And we're integrating those. So the lesson here is you will do more to not let the team down. And I want all of you to think about a team sport that you played. Maybe it was high school, maybe it was middle school. I bet you that you were willing to work harder on that team than you've ever done alone in a dark room. It's just the way we're wired. So what could your life be like if you were on a team that wanted what was best for you, sort of like the NLU team? And so what I'm telling you here, to take an action, whether it's our group coaching or someone else's, just get into an accountability group. Create your own. Post in Next Level Nation if you want to and say, hey, I want to create a little accountability group. We're going to meet once a week for a half an hour, and we're going to check in on our goals. We're going to check in on our progress. I'm telling you, I've seen no exception to this rule. It will change your life. It's not about the 30 minutes. It's about the check-in. Because I guarantee you a day before that call, you're going to sit there and scrounge and get your stuff done. That's the benefit of having a coach.
I think that's one of the unique benefits that Alan and I have had. There's two of us. Like, I can't not do the things that I say I'm going to do because everybody knows about it, and things will burn to the ground. And vice versa.
For sure.
Let's see. What needs are running you? So Tony Robbins has the 6 basic human needs.
Oh, yeah.
You have, I'm going to get these right, hopefully. You have certainty, variety, loving connection, significance, growth, and contribution.
Wow.
So I don't want to jump to that part yet. So back in the day when I had more mindset clients and I wasn't leaning as heavily into the podcast coaching, what we would do is when we jumped on the call, we would rate their basic human needs. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel about your certainty? How good do you feel about your variety? All the way down the list. We realized very quickly that most of the emotionally driven people that I worked with, their number 2 needs were certainty and love and connection. And then variety is usually pretty close. So this is super important to understand for yourself. I am very certainty driven, okay? Now, what happens is when things, for the times that I've been broke, when we've been doing this business thing,
oh yeah,
knowing how certainty driven I am, I ask Alan, hey, what do I do in order to get unbroke? And I'm very good at taking action because I'm so certainty driven that I want to get back into that certainty. I'll do almost anything. Like, I work really hard to get back into certainty. But that is predicated on the fact that I know that about myself. How well do you know your basic human needs? Do you crave variety? A lot of emotional people like variety. They like to do different things. They want to go sightseeing. They want to try new restaurants. They want to go for walks. Alan and I aren't really that way. We're very sit us in the studio and let us work. Some people are significance driven. They want to have the nice car. They have to have a lot of money, that sort of thing. Understanding this about yourself is really going to help you leverage that, and you're going to make yourself more successful. If you don't understand your needs, how well are you going to be able to leverage them against yourself? It's so important, and this is a game changer for me. Tomorrow, when you wake up, I want you to rate your needs. I want you to figure out what are the most important ones to you in order, and I would watch the TED Talk by Tony Robbins because that'll help, and figure out what your most important needs are, and every day, if you checked in with those, I guarantee they have a direct correlation to your mood. If you feel uncertain in your relationship, you have uncertainty in your love and connection, I bet you feel bad that day. And when you start understanding yourself at a deeper level, you can start making better and more logical decisions.
One thing that I think is interesting for me, and this will apply to everybody, is with Emilia, I'm very E first. So it's helping me learn about how other people are wired, because with her, when her and I, if there's any uncertainty in my relationship with Emilia at all, it's very hard for me to think about the future. It's like I don't care. I don't care about the future unless we're good. So like nothing else matters. So I think that what Kevin was mentioning regarding if certainty is not met and your certainty is your first need, it's going to be very hard to think long-term and strategic.
It's going to be hard to do anything.
Literally.
The Tony Robbins uses the analogy. Okay, imagine if all of you watching this were on thin ice right now watching this. You're so uncertain that the floor is going to hold you, the ground is going to hold you, you wouldn't understand a word we're saying. And you're definitely not planning for your future. You're just trying to stay afloat right now.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. Number 6.
Here we go.
Here we go. 14 minutes left. All right. You have to value mastery more. I remember, when was I? I was talking to Emilia recently, and I was talking about how excited I am for this new group coaching initiative. And the reason why I'm so excited, she always asks me why. That's why she has a podcast called Why Power. So I said, because it's the highest we've ever had for mastery, impact, and money. Kevin and I created something today called the MIM score, mastery, impact, and money. And for group coaching, it's a 10 out of 10 for mastery, because it's going to be very challenging. We're actually a little nervous. It's going to be great, though.
Yeah.
Impact is, helping 10 people at once, 10 out of 10. And then money-wise, it's profitable as well. Not a 10 out of 10, but it's good. And so that's why I told her I was so excited. She asked me, what's the 10 out of 10? You can't give a 10 for all of them in terms of my order of importance. She said, what's most important to you, mastery, impact, or money? I said, honestly, mastery first. And here's the reason. If I don't master my craft and get good at it, I can't help as many people. And if I don't help people, I won't make any money. And so they're super connected. So I want you to ask yourself, where is mastery to you? Do you really want to be the best at what you do? And here's what I would say. I'm 620-something coaching calls in. I promise you that my ability to help others is far greater than it's ever been. Because every single one of those calls is this formula that I call prep, rep, reflect, perfect. You've probably heard me talk about this. One of the reasons why I know I suck at looking at the camera is because I've reviewed our past episodes. And even right now, I'm looking at the audience and not the camera. This is hard for me, guys. Genuinely, you've noticed sometimes I'm looking here. Sometimes this is mastery. It's supposed to be difficult. So prep, rep, reflect, perfect. Write those down. Prep, rep, reflect, perfect. Prep. For an hour before this, Kevin and I sat down and we came up with the 10 things that we believe emotionally driven people need to learn. Hour and a half. Rep, we're doing it right now. Do the performance. Reflect, you gotta watch it back. And then perfect, what are you gonna change for next time? I remember a while back we had an jar.
We did. We had an jar.
And now we don't need an jar because we don't say that much anymore. We used to say it all the time. Now my biggest jeffing is not looking at the camera. And then when I'm done with that, I'll notice a different jeffing that I want to work on. 620 coaching calls, 560 episodes, blah, blah, blah. How much do you care about mastery? Okay, frequency, intensity, density, duration. How often are you doing it? How intensely are you focused when you're doing it? How long are you doing it? And then how much are you impacting people along the way? And so, you can want to be a great speaker, great podcaster, whatever it is, but if you're not mastering your craft, you can't help other people. And so...
Here's a question.
Hammer it.
Okay. Am I jeffing myself when I chase fulfillment but don't necessarily want to be the best in the world?
I'm going to let Alan hammer that one.
So, I do believe... I believe that fulfillment is a byproduct of growth and contribution. And I believe that mastery is growth, and I believe that impact is contribution. So to answer the question, yes, I do think you're jeffing yourself. And whoever asked that, I love that they use jeffing. Here's what I would say. What's a good example of this? Let's say you want to open the best restaurant in the city of Boston, and you're a chef. Okay, if you don't master your craft, you will never achieve your dream. You won't be able to. And if that's your dream, it is fulfilling to chase that. It is fulfilling to build that dream. And so, yeah, if you're not mastery focused, I would argue you be jeffing.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with Jeff on this. If you guys have seen my Instagram story, you see me boxing. I'm pretty good at boxing. I'm pretty good at kickboxing. I will never be the best in the world, but I do get fulfillment when I do that. Now, I don't expect to be the best in the world. I don't expect to make it a career. I don't expect to impact people, and I don't expect to master it. So I do agree with what Alan said. You see that? Nice little hook there. I do agree with what Alan said, but I think it depends on what you're actually looking for. For me, it's therapy. When I put my headphones in and I'm kickboxing, everything else kind of goes away. That is fulfillment, that is joy, and that is pleasure for me. I'm not impacting people. I'm not really mastering anything. I mean, I'm getting better, but that's not why I'm doing it. So I think the why underneath is super important too.
Oh, that's fire, man. Absolutely.
I got to, disagree with you every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Yeah,
it's important to get two perspectives. Yeah, we're going.
We're jeffing here.
All right, here we go.
Yes is not always the right answer. So Alan and I have seen, again, when it comes to obligers say yes to things that they shouldn't very, very often. So several of my podcast clients have said this to me. Kevin, I have an interview coming up. Kevin, I did an interview that I don't want to air, but I told this person that it was going to drop this Sunday, this Monday, this Tuesday, whenever it is. What should I do? Alan and I have had that happen to us, I think, 3 times. And we literally canned the episode and never talked to the person again. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but you have to be willing to say no. You have to. Now, that's one example, but when it comes to your time, you have to understand that your time is the most valuable thing you have. As you become more successful, as you become more confident, and as you become more capable, people will pull on your time more. So as you get better, you have to get better at saying no to lunches when you know you should be working, to weekends away when you have a client presentation, to nights out when you know you want to get to the gym the next day, right? Saying no is a skill, and it is something that you can practice, but you really can master it. Alan and I have really been focused on that lately. Saying no, but with empathy. Not doing it in a mean way, because we do love people and we want to spend time with them, right? But we're on a mission, and we want to keep doing this. So what would happen to you, especially if you're emotionally driven, if you didn't start saying no to the things that were keeping you from your yeses? If you kept doing what you were doing, if you kept obliging, what would happen? Would you accomplish your goals? Probably not, right? Because you're not going to stay on path long enough. Create a no list. I want you to sit down and make a list of things that you know you should be saying no to. And this is going to be hard, right? This is going to be hard. You can do that, or you can rate the things that you do day to day on a scale of 1 to 10. The things that are 2s, 3s, and 4s might be things that you should say no to.
So earlier today, and I know we got to hurry here.
Oh, yeah,
earlier today, Kevin and I did a spreadsheet, and we calculated our MIM score. So we looked at all the things we're spending our time on, and then we said 0 to 10, how much is this good for mastery, for impact, and for money, profitability. And the highest was 28, and the lowest was 14. And I told him, I said, from now on when we do this, if we can find another 28, we are going to have to cut out a 13 or a 14 or a 15. As you rise in life, as you get to the next level, there's a reason why all of us can think about when we were 16, something we would never do again. Everyone think about something they did when they were a teenager that they would never do again. Why? Because you're now aware of the pain and the consequences of that decision. See, it's so important for us as we become more aware to be more discerning, to be more and more discerning. So that way we don't keep hammering our head against the wall. All right, we got to crank. Number 8, clear, specific, measurable goals. If you're emotionally driven, you're going to have to be clear and specific with your goals. Everyone really does, but I think that that's not necessarily natural, especially if you're more now focused. So on the NLU team, you guys know that we have a team dashboard. We talked about that last week, and I'm so grateful that we were able to show you guys kind of that, because everyone has their own KPI. Everyone's got their peak performance tracking. At the end of the day, all that's doing is creating direction, clarity, and certainty. No one on this team wakes up and wonders what to do. They all know exactly what they want to do at the very game they've designed. And if they don't like their own game, they can redesign it. So you need to know whether or not you're winning or losing. If you want to gain weight and build muscle, or let me use this, if you want to lose 20 pounds in 20 weeks, that means you need to lose a pound a week. So when you step on that scale, are you losing a pound or not? You should, every time you step on the scale, this is going to be hardcore, but honestly, every time you step on the scale, you should either be excited or frustrated. Now, with that frustration, don't live there, but you want to use it as like, you know what, I got to work a little harder. I got to eat a little less. I got to train a little more. You're going to have to measure it, but you can't measure what's not clear. And so what are your goals? So if I were to ask each and every one of you, what are your top 3 goals for 2021? Could you tell me exactly what they are? Okay, I'll just do this. Amy has a goal of 1,000 Next Level Nation members by the end of 2021. Kevin has a goal of 5 million listens. Very clear and specific. We know if we're on track or off track. But are you doing that for your life? And so I want every one of you to write down right now 3 goals that if you achieved them in 2021, you would have the best life ever. It would be the best year of your life. Just 3. I don't want to overwhelm you with 30 or 50. 3 goals. This would make it the best year you've ever had. And make sure they're measurable, quantifiable.
Really cut me off here. You
Sorry,
know what I'm saying? Really?
You want me to move to that?
Yeah. I'm good.
Cool.
What do we have here? All right, I'm gonna skip this one. So I was gonna talk about confidence. We'll go into that. We have a ton of episodes on confidence. I think this other one is more important for people, especially early entrepreneurs. Understand why you got into business. The one thing I see with entrepreneurs who are emotional is they don't try to make money. They literally get into business to help people, and they're really good at building relationships and really good at forming connections. But when it comes to making money, there's a disconnect, okay? Getting into business to help people is amazing, but your business will not succeed if you don't start to make money. It's just that simple. And Alan and I have been there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And a lot of my clients, I've said this before, I've had several clients who have never looked at their business bank account. They never have looked at it. That was like a breakthrough for them of like, oh, I have to look at my bank account. Yeah, right? You have to track to see what you're doing right, see what you're doing wrong. That is one thing I have seen across the board with emotional entrepreneurs. So I thought it was probably more important to talk about that. The other thing that we were going to talk about is confidence, okay? Confidence is something that you can learn. It's not something you're born with. You learn it. And if you don't think you can learn it, it's going back to the growth versus fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you're going to be convinced things are the way they are, and they're not. It's definitely something you can work on. Where would your life be, or what would your life look like in 10 years again if you didn't gain more confidence? If you stayed where you're at? Are you capable of achieving the things that you've set out for yourself at the level of confidence you are at now? And then for the finance one, tomorrow, track your finances if you don't do it already. One of the biggest game changers I've ever done. Every day I track my finances. I know exactly where it's going, how much money we've made, and that is why I'm the short-term profitability guy.
The QuickBooks.
You see
QuickBooks Jeff.
2 for 1.
That's what we call him now.
Yes.
QuickBooks Jeff.
I don't
All
like
right,
it.
last one. Here we go, 1.5 minutes. You must understand the compound effect. If you are emotionally driven, I don't know if this is true or not, but let me just ask you this. Ask yourself, am I a math person? Am I obsessed with mathematics? Do I love math? If you didn't answer hell yes to that, I promise you that the compound effect is not necessarily the way you naturally think. Now, there's nothing in this life, in nature, that's actually linear. Everything is exponential. COVID is a great example, okay? COVID's not a linear growth. Bacteria is not linear growth. Trees don't grow linearly. Everything's an exponential. A car accelerates, but the acceleration accelerates. Now, before anyone turns off, let me just give you a super, super simple example of this. If you're a math mind, you already know the answer to this, but if I were to take a penny and double it every day for 31 days, how much money would I have? I want everyone to try to guess, okay, in your own head. Come up with something. And I don't want anyone to feel bad, like it is what it is. I bet you didn't guess $10.3 million. That is the compound effect. The people who are the most patient, who do it consistently the longest, are the ones who win. But if you don't know that, you won't have the certainty to do the hard and necessary things long enough. I can't wait until we're more successful and we can talk about how unsuccessful we were for so long.
The whole time.
The whole time. We're it's just unbelievable. So consistency is everything. With consistency, all things are possible, I believe. Without consistency, I want you to really hear this, without consistency, almost nothing is. You want to do the splits? You can't. You want to be a professional swimmer? You can't. You want to be a professional tennis player? You can't. Without consistency, you can't do anything great. With consistency, there's almost nothing you can't do. And that's the thing. If you understand the compound effect, you'll really double and triple down on just being consistent. Showing up is the most important.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 20 minutes with Amy, Jen, I don't know if Brandon's in here. Brandon's in here too. Hang out, chat with them, go over what you learned. We also just opened round 2 of group coaching up. If you missed round 1, we have round 2 open. You can reach out to me or anybody on the team, and we will get you set up in that. We love you, and as always, we don't have fans, we have family.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.